Good afternoon. Welcome to the first session of the second day of the Livenarch VII Congress by Karadeniz Technical University, Faculty and Department of Architecture. I'm Murat Tutkun, the chair of this session. The session is on conservation, transformation, and reuse. The next presentation will be presented by Eren OKAR. The presentation is focused on the I.C.T technology and architectural conservation related with pandemic and visual heritage. So it's an interesting topic and I really wonder about it. So please, Eren, let me introduce yourself to us, please, and then we will be listening for your words. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'm Eren OKAR. I'm a PhD candidate at Istanbul Technical University, and I'm preparing my thesis actually on the information and communication technologies on architectural conservation field. So this paper is also related with some part of this thesis that I want to present today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are waiting for your words. Yes, please.
I have my presentation, so I share the video with you, or
I think if you send your video to the committee,
I've sent, but I can also play as well.
No, if you send it, we will wait for our IT team to present it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eren OKAR, and the topic of my presentation is the information and communication technologies in architectural conservation field. Today, we do everything in digital mediums, and the paradigm shift for the working order after the COVID-19 pandemic just brought some subjects on the daylight, so we can discuss these kind of terms, what might be the new normal for the working orders that we get used to. Here in architecture conservation field and its intersection with information and communication technologies, there are two important points. One is how we gather the data, and two is how we store the final outcome of this data after we interpret that data. So for the first part, for gathering the data, we have different steps. As you can see here, we have three main stages while we prepare a restoration or a conservation project in architectural conservation. We first make the surveying, then we have the restitutional phase, which we make actually the researches about the building, and the final part is the restoration phase. It's the part that we use the data, we interpret the data, and we bring a project for an outcome of this process. And the thing here, we can gather the data from different levels, from state level to regional level to municipality or the neighborhood level to the personal level, to the family archive, until the individual level. And apart from those, we can also use protocol analysis for professional contribution. And we need to start by digitalizing the data for the legislations, the resolutions, the town council decisions, or memoirs, or the user experience. So we can use technological advancements and communication information technologies for gathering and digitalization of those different data levels. And the outcome also is important, because today we use state-of-the-art technological instruments while we are doing everything. We just use laser scanners to scan the building and use the information. Then we use finest computer programs or the computers we use are in the latest stages for those technological advancements, but the outcomes are two-dimensional drawings, which are the mere representations of what we are working, what we are dealing with. Because in the architecture conservation field, we are dealing with the data itself. The historical buildings are the mediums that the data embedded in them. And when we are doing something, when we are trying to do something with those buildings, it's just we're representing it as simple or as weak as it can ever be. So why don't we change the way? Why don't we change the way we perceive the thing about this approach? Because at the end, no matter what we do or no matter how we do it, it's going to be called the paperwork. But the data we are dealing with means more than a paper work in that case. So we are actually limiting the possibilities we are dealing with when we are just transforming the wide range of possible alternatives of data usage into a mere two-dimensional and limited alternative here. So we need to change it. We need to transform it. Here you can see on the right-hand side, there are few topics from information and communication technologies areas, and on the left-hand side you can see those are the different steps in architectural restoration project preparation phase. So they're entwined into each other. So why don't we use different mediums? Why don't we use different alternatives while we are dealing with it? Why don't we prepare our Council of Monuments and other public bodies with the sufficient infrastructure? Because on different levels we are dealing with these information, we are dealing with these data, and they are all digitalized, but bringing them together, just using them for a common purpose could be the tomorrow of the way we perceive or way we approach while we're preparing architectural restoration and conservation projects. And as you can see here, we can also use them for educational, exhibitional, exploration or reconstruction or visual museum kind of different alternatives. So it's possible. How we perceive or how we deal with things is how we show, how we express them. Thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you, Eren. As I said before, it's an interesting topic. So I would like to read the full paper one more time after your presentation. Thank you one more time. And the next presentation will be presented by Seda KÜÇÜKKATIRCI. And Seda KÜÇÜKKATIRCI is focused on architectural conservation, intercultural exchange, and moving in the context of otherization, I think. So we will wait for your words, but before it, let's introduce yourself to us, please.
Hi, I'm Seda KÜÇÜKKATIRCI. I am PhD student in the Erciyes University. My paper name is Otherizing the Place Through Buildings Moved to Museums. Thanks your attention.
Thank you so much. So we are wondering about your words. Let's see the presentation. Yes, please.
Everyone, I am Seda KÜÇÜKKATIRCI. I am architect and PhD student at Erciyes University. My subject is Authorizing the Place of Buildings Moved to Museum. The introduction part. At the end of the 19th century, some historical buildings that were detached from the context of the place were moved to other countries to be exhibited in museums. It is aimed to draw attention to the exchange between the states of England, Germany, and USA, which are on the politically strong front, and the Ottoman, Egypt, and Middle East countries which have a rich history in terms of cultural heritage. Within the scope of the study, the original location of the buildings, their meaning for the region, their detachment from the context of the place, their degree of adaptation to their new spaces have been questioned through the spirit of the place, the authorization of the place. The results were obtained by discussing the effects of the transport action on the buildings, the original place, and the point where it was moved. The authenticity term. While the concept of the originality in architectural conservation includes, along with its material, form, workmanship, function, and location qualities. The spirit of the place. The old name is genesiology. Schulz stated in his studies that the spirit of the place, genesiology, transforms the structural, psychological, and perceptual relations of the human with the place into existential space. For centuries, the monumental buildings in the city have established an identity, relational, and historical link between the individual and the building. When it comes to authorization of the place, there are two opposite sides as the original place in the settlement of the building and the place where it was moved. The bond that the building established with the place it is in is broken with the relocation of the building and the authorization of the place. Santos Antique City and four monumental building. Original location is Antalya. The museum exhibited in British Museum, London. The date it was built 4th century BC. The date moved the museum 19th century. Intense reliefs were engraved on all four buildings. They contain mixed Greek and Persian influence. In the 19th century, excavations were carried out by the Charles Fellows in the Antique City, and some remains and burial buildings were discovered in the area. The transported buildings are exhibited in the exhibition room of the British Museum, which is located in the centre of London. The pedestals of the tomb buildings removed from the area are located in Santos. Another example is Egyptian Dendur Temple. Original location is Nubia region, Dendur, Egypt. The museum exhibited Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. The date it was built 1st century BC. The date moved the museum 20th century. The Nubian region is the region of the temples that functioning as a buffer zone between Rome and Egypt in the 1st century BC. Nubian region attracted the attention of archaeologists in the 19th century. It takes place in urban memory with its symbolic quality in the silhouette of the Nile River. The President of USA was given as a gift from Egypt and started to be exhibited in New York Metropolitan Museum. It was aimed to use a glass mask so that it could be combined with steel. Misata Palace. Original location is Amman, Jordan. The museum exhibited in Pergamon Museum, Berlin. The date it was built in the middle of 18th century. The date moved the museum 20th century. The area where the building is located is one of the more than 30 desert palaces stretching across Iraq and Saudi Arabia. The monument was discovered by archaeologists in 19th century and was unknown to the locals until then. Amman, which used to be a village during the Ottoman period. In 20th century, the facade of the palace was gifted to German Emperor Wilhelm II by Abdülhamit II. At the same time, the palace complex was turned into a museum and brought to the city. The other example is Miletus Antique City Agora Gate. Original location is Didim, Aydın, Turkey. The museum exhibited in Pergamon Museum. The date it was built 1st century BC. The date moved the museum 20th century. It reflects the Roman period architecture. The facade section moved the Berlin Pergamon Museum. It is the southern agora, dated to 1st century BC Roman period and used as an entrance monument. Although the original user has changed over time, each user living in the city has diversified the architectural texture by adding different ties to the city. The southern Agora Gate, on the other hand, has an important place in the memory of the user in the area, as it symbolizes and describes the beginning of the southern region. Pergamon Antique City, 3 monumental building. Original location is Pergamon, İzmir, Turkey. The museum exhibits Pergamon Museum, Berlin. The date it was built, 2nd and 4th century BC. The date moved the museum, 19th century. Pergamon, multi-layered cultural landscape area which contains layers belonging to the Hellenistic, Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman periods. Transported buildings contains traces of Roman architecture. At the same time, all three buildings have an important place in urban memory for centuries because they were built when the city was first settled. Benefiting from the weakening of the Ottoman government, humans started to move the buildings to Germany in 19th century. Conclusion part. Within the scope of the research, it is not compatible with today's conservation awareness to remove historical buildings that integrate with the context of the place by witnessing many user profiles that extend for centuries. When the historical buildings is separated from the place data, which has an undeniable place in the criterion of originality, it is subject to Otherizing. When we look at the issue from the other side of the coin, in the context of the place where the historical buildings were torn off, the buildings is only referred to as a lost memory in the cultural memory, and it appears as another negative side of the being otherized. The spirit of the place has been changing exponentially as the symbolic buildings such as the Anatolian antique city of Miletus, Santos, Bergamo, the Egyptian Nubian monuments region, and the Jordan Palace complex escape from singularity and coexist with the surroundings. In this way, they have become unthinkable independently of their surroundings. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thank you, Seda, for your interesting presentation. And the next presentation will be presented by Seda KÜÇÜKKATIRCI. The presentation will be focused on the period attachments in restoration applications, also additions in the context of architectural conservation and restoration. She will analyze, I think, the attachments in the context of conservation and restoration, just wondering about it. And it will be focused on the effects of change and attachments reflecting the layers of different periods. So, wondering about your presentation, but firstly, please introduce yourself to us. Yes, please.
Hi everyone, I am Sümeyye. I am at Erciyes University doctoral student. In my study, it was discussed which of the period suffixes should be preserved in restoration practices, and to determine what is included and what is not included when associated with the concept other. And then I may think you show my presentation.
Okay, thank you. And let's listen your words. Yes, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Sümeyye. Welcome to my presentation. I am a doctoral student at Erciyes University. Now I'm going to show you my presentation. The title is Not Preserving the Other: Problems of Conservation and Discrimination of Period Attachment in Restoration Applications. The restorations and reuse of historical buildings dates back to the beginning of the art of construction. Thanks to the approach, many buildings have survived to the present day by layering with different interweaving, repairing, and additions throughout the ages. These buildings, which are reflections of the concrete and intangible values of the culture they belong to, have ensured the continuity of the experiments and traditions accumulated throughout history. This period annexes, which were added to buildings in different periods, led to discussions of the different platforms with the warp spirit understanding of the scientific conservation. Which of the period suffixes should be preserved in restoration applications is a decision that should be made by experts with an interdisciplinary study. With this study, which is prepared within the frameworks of what is prioritized to protect, which is accepted as us, and which is the other. It's aimed to examine the methods and principles of distinguishing affixes belonging to different periods in cultural heritage, preserving study through examples. In the study methodology, first of all, the concepts of period attachment and other are discussed theoretically and changes and additions reflecting the layers of the different periods in historical buildings. It will be examined through examples, and its effect on buildings are perceptual, physically, aesthetic, and historical will be discussed. The other problems in the transformation of worship buildings. The most important reason for the alienation in religious buildings is to ignore the holistic relationship and to preserve the architectural elements that should be temporary. In societies that think that all originalities and differences should be respected, all kind of interventing turn into a cleaning work. As a result of this cleaning process, while trying to reach the original, all the differences that may arise in a culture are destroyed. This situation, which is seen as another way of marginalization, needs to adopt the differences of other cultures and their own differences. Trying to produce this state of being different is to otherize the other and reproduce it under the name of other. The only things to do is to accept the normality of difference. Architectural buildings built to serve certain functions undergo different transformation over time and are used for different functions. For example, Hagia Sophia, which has examined in the study and converting from a church to a mosque, allows us to observe every intervention in the cultural heritage in the building and its immediate surrounding. Hagia Sophia was both preserved with the addition they made as proof that the Ottoman approached a culture and Christian artifacts before them with respect, and these additions were made more valuable with their complementary, uplifting and embellishing beauty and reached the present day. Another example, at the beginning of the restoration in the Molagrani Mosque, first of all, the added annexes were removed. These are similar types of incompatible buildings, such as the fontaine, which is a recent addition, and the room for the mosque teachers. The apse, part of the northern church of the building, which was converted into a mosque under the name of Fethiye, was removed. A section with a mihrab and a dome facing the Qibla was added, and the buildings underwent a special change. It is also seen that a minaret was added to the building. Zeyrek Mosque, within the scope of the repair works carried out, the weak part of the bonding mortar between the bricks in the masonry were cleaned, and the joints in these areas were filled with suitable materials. These applications, which are renewed today, were made after the repairs and stage of the building were understood very well. And then conclusion, within the scope of study, the restoration of religious buildings and period annexes were examined, and the preserving of period annexes was tried to be examined in the context of the other. As seen in Zeyrek Mosque, functionally inappropriate plan schemes emerged as a result of the conserving of Byzantine church into mosque. The change made in Fethiye Mosque in Istanbul made it difficult for researchers to decipher the construction date of the building. As in all cultural properties that have lost their function today, the differentiations of the user and the protector of the examined buildings over time affects the context and priority of the repair of the buildings, carrier system and decoration programs. The effects of the removed and the other period supplement on the buildings should be questioned more. Their benefits to the builds should be discussed and their reconstructions should be suggested. Thanks for listening.
And the next presentation will be presented by Ceyda, YURTTAŞ, ŞAHİN from Karadeniz Technical University as the host. And so the presentation will be about the restoration techniques related to the damage types in the context of closed courtyard Madrasah tombs in Anatolian Seljuk Empire period. So before the presentation, please introduce yourself to us. Yes, please, Ceyda.
Hi everyone, I am Ceyda YURTTAŞ ŞAHİN. I am PhD student and also research assistant at Karadeniz Technical University. My discipline is focused on architectural conservation. So that's it. I think that's enough. I hope so you find my presentation efficient. Also, we can go to my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And waiting for your words in the presentation. Yes, please.
Thank you for your participation. I would like to introduce myself. I am Ceyda YURTTAŞ ŞAHİN from Karadeniz Technical University. I will talk about the study titled Investigation of the Restoration Techniques Applied in the Context of Damages Determined in Closed Courtyard Madrasah Tombs in Anatolian Seljuk Empire period, which we prepared with my dear advisor Murat Tutkun. I would like to start with the table of contents. In the table of contents, firstly, the outlines of the study are explained. Afterwards, help subheadings, analyses, and evaluations are included. Architectural conservation practices, which start with unplanned and simple maintenance and repair works, have evolved into a concept with a scientific and theoretical background with what the modern world shaped after the age of Enlightenment brought. The problem section of the study. While the new methods and techniques developed with increasing applications with the theoretical infrastructure have positively affected the architectural preservation process, they have also brought with them the problem of which technique will be used, when, where, and how. In addition, the increase in the opportunities in the field of architectural preservation with the developing science and technology has also led to an increase in the workload. In the shadow of the increasing workload, the determination of the damage type and the selection of the effective restoration techniques plays a vital role in the context of ensuring the sustainability of the historical buildings whose original integrity is desired to be conserved. In conservation practices, choosing the wrong restoration technique for the correctly detected damage, as well as the wrong determination of the existing damage, can directly or indirectly damage the historical built environment. Hypothesis. In order to preserve the original integrity of the historical built environment as much as possible, it is necessary to examine the past practices to identify the problems encountered in the process, to question of the underlying causes, and to suggest remedial suggestions. It is thought that each part implementation examined will shed light on solving the problems to be encountered in architectural conservation implementations in the future and reduce errors. Purpose. The aim of the study of the examined to what extent the restoration techniques selected in the final restoration implementations carried out in the building in the study area eliminate or do not remove the types of damage detected in the surveying studies and what are the reasons that cause these situations. Scope. For this purpose, the examinations and evaluations were made on the tomb structure of the madrasahs, which are related to the Anatolian Seljuk period close courtyard madrasah structures, both in terms of meaning and architecture. The selected building groups has been chosen as the study area because it allows the observation of different types of damage as they contain different building materials, construction systems, and building elements. In this context, within the scope of the study, the structures that will be examined and evaluated are listed as follows: Afyon Sinanpaşa Boyalıköy Madrasah Tomb, Erzurum Yakutiye Madrasah Tomb, Isparta Atabey Ertokuş Madrasah Tomb, Kırşehir Cacabey Madrasah Tomb, Konya Karatay Madrasah Tomb. Method. Within the scope of the study, separate analysis tables were created for each building. These tables contain the identity information, visuals, and site plans of the buildings. In addition, the last restoration implementations of the tombs were obtained from the relevant institutions and organizations. 1. Schematic plans, facade, and section drawings in which the damage detected in the survey drawing and report is expressed with colored legends. 2. Schematic plans, facades, and section drawings in which the restoration techniques applied in the building according to the restoration drawing and report are indicated with colored legends. 3. There are schematic plans, facades, and section drawings in which the damages detected in the field studies carried out in 2017 that are expressed with the help of colored legends. The types of damage seen in the masonry structures within the study area are mentioned in brief. On this slide, the restoration techniques applied in the masonry structures in the study area are briefly mentioned. Anatolian Seljuk period tombs architecture. The tombs architecture of the Anatolian Seljuk period appears with their single-space arrangements. The buildings are generally constructed as a two floors. On the lower floor of the building, there is mostly burial chamber place where the body of the builder is found. On the upper floor of the tomb, there is a prayer room section where the mihrab, the representative sarcophagus, are located and the worship is performed. Access from the tomb chamber to the masjid is usually provided by stairs from outside the building. The layout chart prepared in the analysis tables created can be seen in the visual. You can see the damage types indicated by the colored legends. The layout chart prepared in the analysis tables created can be seen in the visual. Other samples. Evaluation and conclusion. In this section, there is an evaluation table created as a result of analysis. According to the results of evaluation table, common and singular findings were reached that the restoration techniques applied in the selected structures in the evaluation table were insufficient to remove the damages detected before the restoration. Particularly, it has been observed that the fracturing, crumbling, and erosion, mortar missing, vegetation, soiling, discoloration, salt efflorescence damage recur due to the inability to eliminate the basic moisture problem in the building. Accordingly, in the future restoration implementations, the necessity of investigating the main cause of the observed damage in depth and removing this problem from the structure should be taken into the consideration. In addition, researching the effectiveness of the techniques applied after the restoration works to be carried out in the future and keeping recordings for this will allow the development of studies to be carried out in this field. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Ceyda, for your exciting presentation. And with the last presentation, we have concluded our part in this session. Now it's time to take questions related to the presentations. Seda KÜÇÜKKATIRCI, for their paper with the name Otherizing the Place Through Buildings Moved to Museums. Is the study only consist of determination, or do you have any suggestions related to the solutions?
I suggest in the conclusion part, this buildings transport the context of the place, our out to see place. Yani I suggest.
I know speaking English is a problem in scientific congresses. I can understand you. If you would like, you can talk Turkish. It doesn't matter.
In the Turkish, I'm so sorry. Bu yapıların tekrar Türkiye'ye taşınmasını öneriyorum. Ya bunların o ihtimallerini tekrar söylüyorum sonuç aşamasında.
Is this a research?
Sorry?
Is this suggestion is a research?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And one more question to Eren. I love your paper. Firstly, I have to say that. And just where are my notes about Eren? Well, I just wonder about that. Do you have any research project or applications, or is this only the literature review? If I study such topic, I think the main thing must be that creating a research project. Do you have any?
My PhD thesis is about a project on that sense, but this part is only the beginning of my thesis, so it's pretty much like a literature review in that sense. And actually, this is the cause reason, this is the base reason why I'm preparing such a system, depending on this kind of perception.
So we can say that it's the only literature part of your study.
This is the beginning, the introduction and the methodology of my study. And this is the paper is actually also about this. And it also is actually, I try to emphasize, I try to show that until now, the ways we approach to the buildings were different, and it was just limited due to the possibilities of the technology we are using. But the pandemic showed us that it's also possible that we can just change it, we can just transform it, we can just use new mediums or new elements or new technologies for that. So why don't we also change our perception, the way we perceive, how we approach to that buildings? And my thesis is actually how we can do it. I'm trying to suggest a new system, suggest a new methodology to do it.
Wow, so waiting and wondering for your the conclusion of your research. Thank you.
You, so kind of you.
I wonder about is there any question to our participants? There's no written question. I have just checked. Is there any? Thank you all. And before concluding the session, I have special thanks to Livenarch organizing team and Karadeniz Technical University, the Faculty and Department of Architecture also. But the special thanks to Sena and Melis for their support on behalf of the Livenarch team in the session. Thank you so much. And thank you all, you participants, and for your presentations. Take care of yourself. Thank you.